Hello and welcome to AFP. My name is Devang and I'm joined by the usual suspects, David Goss and Sean Kay. On today's show, we chat Major Leeds Soccer, Djordje Mihailovic's shocking move to Alkmaar, Alex Bono and Toronto FC struggles, Romell Kyoto's golden boot chase, Ricky Pooch's LA Galaxy debut, the Whitecaps have a boost to their playoff chances. We chat about that with Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic. Plus, we open up the mailbag for another edition of Ask AFP. Gentlemen, how are we doing? How is soccer treating you, David Goss?
Well, now that New Jersey is the greatest talent producer in the history of the world game, and, you know, as someone who sits atop, like, it's just really hard for me to talk about the sport with, like, people who just don't get it, you know, like people from England and Spain and Brazil and Mexico,
right?
Where it's like, you guys don't know what culture is like. Because like when you live in the culture that's always around you, it's just so different. Like it's you know, we call it soccer here too. We don't even call it football.
We have a whole section of Leeds propaganda coming, but I just want to say Jesse Marsh's mannerisms on the touchline, as long as they're not involving a team I'm invested in, are great. I love them. I love how passionate he is. It seemed like a very fun time, and the fact that it is the Americans doing it plus Jack Harrison, it's MLS time, baby.
It is MLS time. I'm as excited for Jack Harrison as I am for anyone. Like,
yeah,
I was watching, and my girlfriend, fiance, whatever term you want to use, she's like, "Oh, don't we know him too?" And I was like, "Yes, this is our team. We love all of them."
Sean and I were at the seminal draft moment when Jack Harrison was picked first. So SK, I think we deserve some plaudits as well.
Yeah, we did it. We were whispering in the corners, being like, "This is the guy.
Pick him.
Gonna be the guy."
Pick him.
Yeah, it's. I think it was perfect that all of this sort of happened against Christian Pulisic, like the banner poster boy of American soccer, and then all of a sudden Leeds just comes across, is like, "Not today," and just absolutely wiped the floor with him sitting on the bench. It was just, I don't know. It felt right, and it felt like this new American team is just coming through and just in showing that we're more than just a player.
I'm sure if you went back 100+ episodes on this show, you'd hear me say, and I've been saying it for 7 years, that this is not a golden generation. It's the future. Like everything that's happened. And I believe the same with Canada. Now, I will say, unlike Pulisic and Weston McKennie, I think Alphonso Davies is unique in how great he is. So I don't know that anyone will reach his heights consistently. But in terms of the player pool, I don't believe either are golden generations. I think they are that development and opportunity and awareness and technology and all those things have happened. So I get what you're saying, Sean, and I love that too. And it goes to the point, which is like, no one is locked in stone on any of these rosters because there is other talent and other quality. And yes, a World Cup's coming up in 2.5 months. That's probably different. But just for the future, like people are like, well, Christian Pulisic is the U.S. national team. There's a very real possibility that he's not an assumed starter over the next 5 years because there's other great players that are coming through and other great potential. And that's super exciting. And I'd go to the point of like, they don't go over now as 14-year-olds trying to break into an academy. Like these are players that are acquired for millions of dollars. And therefore there's already that level of buy-in.
I don't want to bring down the feel-good vibes, but I was away from home this weekend. I just got to get this off my chest. I was away from home in Ottawa for a wedding this weekend, so I was left to streaming a lot of the stuff that was happening, and having like 7 different subscriptions to watch all of these games really made me mad again about the fractured nature of our streaming viewing. Just wanted to get that out there.
How much do you think the soccer world changes on November, let's say December 10th? In Canada, like after a men's team plays in the Men's World Cup in, let's not call it prime time, but I think a lot of the games are like 2 p.m. Eastern time around the holidays. Like, how much do you think is that a moment where other, you know, networks and advertisers and everyone sort of are like, this is a major thing and it all shifts?
I'm a bit not skeptical, but I think we might have, not the saturation point, but I feel like, and we've talked about the CSA business. I don't know I don't know if it'll be that huge in that sense, Sean. Like, I don't know if the networks, basically where we're at today, I feel like is the new future as well. And for better or for worse, in terms of having to have like 7 different subs, I think that's just the way it's going to be. But it does make for a difficult time to bring others in, if you know what I mean, in terms of accessibility, which I would hope would improve with a World Cup performance. But I'm a bit skeptical.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a tough thing, and we're seeing this across other businesses as well. Obviously, HBO going through the gears really tough right now as well. I think that there's going to be this sort of leveling out with a lot of these streaming companies, either figuring out how to make it work for less or whatever. But yeah, I don't think Canada will see a massive shift in how broadcasting is done, just for the fact that broadcasting dollars that, say, a TSN or a Sportsnet or what have you could put forward for soccer in Canada just still won't be enough to win out on, let's call it a worldwide deal or a multi country deal, et cetera, et cetera. And there's just so much. Like, it's tough. But I will say Fubo has made it a little bit easier from a Canadian perspective, being able to watch England, Italy, CPL all in one package. So this isn't a Fubo ad, but
I was gonna say, I was about to say, shouts to Chromecast and Fubo for allowing me to watch a lot of soccer this weekend as well. Not an ad. Okay, before we get to today's show, a reminder, we are on patreon.com/A Football Podcast, the place to chat MLS plus all other footy. It's our Discord. DG, what else do you get if you join us there?
You get the opportunity to watch me. I decided I'm going to start throwing grenades at Arsenal to you in the Discord, because I need you to put some hard decisions down and takes.
Have you noticed I've gone after Nick Andrade and his Liverpool fandom because I sense there's a weakness there. So we have to strike while the iron is hot, David. Consolidate our resources here. Don't go after me.
Interesting. Yeah, you do make a good point. This is an opportunity for us, but you also make a bad point in that I could also troll you later if I get you to say things like blah blah blah, we guarantee this.
Correct.
So yeah.
It's basically the Discord is a place to settle grievances and settle scores, and it's pretty fun. So join us at patreon.com/A Football Podcast. You get Discord access, you get the show ad free, plus you get it early when we record on Tuesdays. It's a great deal. Coming up after the break, we dive into CF Montreal's run towards greatness, but with a major potential speed bump along the way, plus TFC and other MLS talk coming up next.
L'ouverture magnifique, c'est pour Kyoto qui rabat en une touche. Kyoto dans la surface, un contre un. Kyoto! Magnifique! Délicieux! C'est pas gentil pour Andrew Farrell ce qu'il vient de faire au mec Kyoto. Il a une maman, Andrew Farrell.
The bells are ringing for CF Montreal, and I'm not sure if anyone can stop it. David, let's dive into CF Montreal. A lot is going on. We'll talk about the resounding win against the New England Revolution shortly, but transfer news, Djordje Mihailovic apparently in Holland right now. He seems to be on the move to AZ Alkmaar, but there's a huge load of complexities involved with this, David. It sounds like he'll be sold, but then loaned back and then leave for good in January so that he can finish this playoff run. I mean, they look just fine against New England, but he's obviously a huge role or a huge factor in what they've done so far this season. Quite a curveball for this club, eh?
It is, I think, a massive move, and this is the perfect way for it to happen. To keep him for the rest of the season and make a real run for MLS Cup, I think is huge, but to already have guaranteed yourself what will be a record, sale and a record buy for AZ Alkmaar as well. Coming up, I just think that's exactly what you wanted for CF Montreal in this moment, because this is proof of concept. And Kamal Miller and Alistair Johnston, and maybe down the road a James Pantomas, Ismail Kone, like this is sort of the way they want to build their club. And this is their first opportunity to do it. And so this is a massive move, but I think it would have hurt to not take a shot with him this year. And so for him to come back, and I've spoken to Tom Bogert 80 times today. So the language there is he's basically signing a pre-contract with AZ Alkmaar, and because he can't be loaned back because the window was closed here. And so he can't be acquired by CF Montreal. But however it works, it doesn't really matter. It just, I think it would have hurt to be this good, because this is different than FC Dallas having Ricardo Pepi and him being an important piece, but they were barely a playoff team. Like, this is a top 2 team in the East. I think it would have hurt to not take a shot at winning with this group.
I agree. I also think $6 million sounds right for someone of Djordje's profile. He's not old, but I think he's on the cusp of like this prime phase of his career.
And I would just add to that, I've beat this drum a lot, but you are selling to a selling club. And so $6 million is not the end. Like, that is such a key part of this. And I think for a while, MLS teams were obsessed with like, can we get a Serie A team? Can we get a Bundesliga team? Can we put that on our resume? And now the understanding of down the road, this could end up being $10 million all in, because he will go and score a bunch of goals in the Netherlands, and then we'll get sold, and then we'll get sold again. And that is a process that you want to start as soon as possible.
Well, they didn't miss him that much over the weekend, and I think that goes to credit what Wilf Nancy has done at this club. And depending on who wants to step up or who needs to step up, your Kone, your Torreses, your Laplainens, they did the job. I think it's quite telling that a New England team that, I wouldn't say muzzled TFC, but kept them in check relatively well, could not handle Montreal at all over the weekend. I know it's a tough road trip, but still, I thought that was quite a resounding performance. And Romell Kyoto, someone I think I've written off 46 times on this show, keeps proving me wrong. I think he's 4 goals back of the Golden Boot lead. Is there something that surprised you especially that stands out, David? Like, of this team? Like, I know we've talked about them quite often and been raving about their success, but is there something that you didn't expect to see happen this year for them?
I think a big one is Sam Piette. Like, to me, Sam Piette was a locker room culture guy now. He was not a player you wanted to see on the field anymore if you were going to be a team that competed at this level. And he's been awesome for them. And he has been awesome to the extent that they can use Kone in different ways, as well as manage Kone, because one of the things we forget with young players is, they've got energy, but the up and down experience of being a pro can be hard for players to deal with. So that's been a really big one. The durability of Kai Kamara has obviously been a huge one. Like, you knew he could score goals in the ways he scores goals, and he would be a factor. I thought when I talked to Patrice Bernier the day they signed Kai, he was like, it's great when Toy's out, blah, 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 but it's also like a big body to bring off the bench late in games, because look at what happened against Orlando last year. But now he's a starter, and he's been that for a lot of the year. So I think that those are the two that sort of stand out of, I wouldn't have expected them at the beginning of the year. And I say this every week, and I'm going to say it again. When you look at the performance against the Revs, it doesn't happen if Mathieu Chagnier is not on the field. He is so versatile.
That flick to unlock Kyoto on the first goal. Goodness me.
And I've beat the drum that I understand, especially in a game when Djordje isn't what we're hearing, not even in the country, that you need the attacking ability of Lassi Lappalainen on the field. But he is a poor defender. He is not a center mid. He's not a forward. It's hard to get him on the field. Choignier's flexibility and tactical understanding allows you to play Lappalainen as much as you do, because he can do all of the things that Lassi Lappalainen's not doing, whether he's coming inside in that moment or he's going wide to defend. I just thought he was massive in this game.
That Sam Piette ball as well for Kyoto's second was superb. Also, I believe Andrew Farrell has retired now after being destroyed by Kyoto in that 1v1.
He has one of these every few weeks, but then a few weeks later, he'll be like the best defender.
He'll
in the
be
weekend.
great. Yeah. Or like midweek at BMO Field when he was great. It's funny how things work. Just to touch on Kai Kamara, I believe now 135th goal in MLS. He's now 3rd all time. He's 37. You think he's chasing this record? He probably can keep playing if he remains durable.
I have obviously thought about this and talked about this a lot this week. I think he probably feels better about his chances of breaking Landon for second than he did at the beginning of the season. Like, remember, no one signed him, and he did not play last year. He played like 9 times all season. He was in and out. He had to go to Finland to find a spot. He obviously had the Sierra Leone experience, but I don't think there was a guarantee that he'd be playing professional soccer in 2023 last year. And now it feels hands down 100% someone's going to take a shot on him, and he will score 10 more goals at least in his MLS career, if not more. He will probably stand second. I don't think he's at 135. Wando's at 171. I don't think he'll get there, but I feel pretty safe in saying he will be second alone by the time he retires.
Don't look now, but the crowds are coming back too at Montreal. 3 sellouts in the last 4 matches. The atmosphere is extremely positive, and once again, a testament to what Will Nancy and this crew has established there, because it's a tough place to play. New England's not a bad team. I think I was a bit surprised how that game ended up turning out, because I think there were some moments early on that it could have maybe gone a different way, but that's just a testament to how well CF Montreal has been playing as one of the best teams in the East. Yeah, go ahead.
I would agree with you that it did feel for the first 30 minutes like, they're going to miss.
There was a chance,
Djordje.
right?
Yeah.
Right? There was, it seemed like there was an opportunity there for the Revs, but good teams usually squash that pretty early or do their best to kill any belief that a visiting team might have. And I think CF Montreal did that exceptionally well. Up next, Chicago. I mean, sky's the limit. I'm really curious to see how the Mihailovic transfer is handled within the room, and I expect it to be handled well because of the leaders that we've mentioned in this locker room who've led them to this point. Shall we move on to 2 less impressive Eastern Conference teams who are battling for a playoff spot? A lot of big names in this game, including Alejandro Pozuelo, but Inter Miami beating TFC 2-1. A bad week for TFC in terms of their playoff pursuit. 1 point out of a possible 6. Both games against teams really close to them in the standings. It's not enough. And I think that there was some looks of resignation perhaps on some of the faces of the players following full time in Miami. We got to talk about the Alex Bono howler. I feel like we've reached a point now where I don't think Alex has been the biggest problem defensively for TFC. And I remember seeing a stat that he had saved above the goals expected for him in terms of what he's done in net. But I feel like this happens a bit too often, and I wonder if it's best for both parties after the season to perhaps go their separate ways, because I've just an absolute backbreaker to dig out of from there. I thought they would have had more firepower to overcome it, but you can't have these mistakes happen, David.
Did we just do this convo too? Like, this is what it feels like, is every time we did or Quentin Westberg plays well, then you come back around and it's another one of these. I agree with you. I would say, in the same breath as saying that, if I was an MLS team in this off season and he was available for what I think he will be, I would put him on my roster. I wouldn't be shocked. I said to you before we started, I wouldn't be shocked if he pulls a Zach McMath and like finds his feet somewhere else and has a solid run. But it has been made clear that he should not be the starting goalkeeper for TFC for years now. And some of that might just be scar tissue of playing at a club that exposes you and defends poorly and signs really bad defenders and doesn't sign defenders and stuff like that. All that might be the reality, but whatever it is for him and the club, I think you need to move on. And as you said, I was shocked that they only put up 1 goal against Inter Miami, but putting yourself behind the 8 ball with mistakes like that just is not a winning formula.
You had the Insigne Galazzo as well, which is like, okay, maybe they'll be all right. Maybe it doesn't matter if there is a howler because they have this potential. But yeah, I expected more goals as well. We, of course, had some off-the-field stuff. Jesus Jimenez didn't go to Miami to get rest. What a difference a couple of months make, David. We're talking about this being one of the more positive transfers of the season, but it does feel like with the arrival of the DPs, Jimenez has lost I'm not saying confidence, but I just don't know what happened really with this situation. I'm not sure if you have more to read into it.
No, I think a lot of it happened before they arrived. I mean, he scored a ton of goals early in the season and then it all sort of dried up. I still think he's the best partner for them in this team, as I've said a couple times, because they're now both goal scorers and he's more of a creator than Io is. But also, there's the business side of things, which is that Io, you hope, will make a lot of money for TFC. Right. And if you've spent a lot of money on those two players and Criscito and all those guys as well, can they elevate him and sort of put him in the shop window for you? And I don't know if that's the motivation behind it, because I do think this is a club that's built first and foremost around trying to, make the playoffs and win titles and stuff. But it doesn't feel like a coincidence.
It doesn't. Not a lot of positives to take away from this week for TFC. I think the road to the playoffs now, they simply cannot lose a game. And I'm not sure if that is sustainable based on what we've seen, but the road continues forward. I would just also like to say the fact there were no hydration breaks in this match is mind-boggling to me, because I feel like they should definitely have been in place as you watched the zombie walk that was the last 20 minutes of this game. I don't understand how they weren't in place. It's
MLS adjusting to global warming now. It has to be 178 degrees for you to get a hydration break. Otherwise, they'll just be hydration breaks all game.
And speaking of polarizing, Jayden Nelson, I do want to have a brief discussion on why it seems that nobody has the same opinion about him. Sean, I feel like we've chatted about this as well, that the way he is viewed is particularly interesting to me, because from my vantage point, he's doing something a bit new for him. And I think what we've seen so far are positive signs, but I know that's not a universally held opinion.
Yeah, I'm really confused to it. And this is why I put in the rundown. It's just any conversation I have with any fan, there's just mixed feelings about Jayden, and especially in his move to the midfield to sort of be that third midfielder while Marc-Anthony Kaye gets better. I feel like he's really grown and really understood his role in that position and has thrived. And I know that he is a 19-year-old who makes mistakes and is loose with his dribble sometimes, but the ability that he brings to move the ball forward and to drive forward and connect is just been so nice to see in that midfield. And maybe I have rose-colored glasses because I followed Jayden from the 15-year-old to the 17 to the 19-year-old, but I've been really happy with his progression in the last, especially the last 4 or 5 games. What do you think, David?
Let me ask you guys this, and this would be my assumption of what a lot of the reaction is. You mentioned following him, right? The belief, the hope, the excitement was that he would be a 1v1 devastator, a goal scorer, a creator. He has not done that in central midfield, which I think is fine. Let me state that I'm happy with what I've seen. I'm super excited. I think I said that on the show last week.
Yeah.
But could you not understand, or do you not feel a little bit of the letdown that he is not the same player at this level as he showed he was going to be and was at the younger ranks, which would be fairly unique for a Canadian and an academy player?
I would say that it's tough to make that decision already on a 19-year-old in a situation where there wasn't a lot of support. The team that we see now versus the team that was running on the field at the beginning of the season is apples and oranges. And I still think that Jayden is creating. I think he was involved in both goals last week, playing, once again, one turning into a penalty and the other not. But it's like he is finding these through balls. But yes, he's not taking on guys 1v1 and making them fall every single time. But I also think that, once again, we're talking about a 19-year-old who is trying to catch up. And I think he's sort of been thrown to the wolves. And I don't feel like he's been failing in my mind.
I think this week was a good encapsulation of maybe the growing pains that accompany someone at this age playing this much. I felt like his best game of the season was against New England midweek. And then I think maintaining that and staying to that level is tough. And it's tough, especially when the stakes are super high, especially with this team with expectations they have. So I can understand perhaps some impatience maybe, but to me, he's not the issue in that midfield. I think it's some of the things that we've literally been saying on a weekly basis since the season started, and nothing has really changed at the back. The second goal, calamitous defending, but I mean, I think I can remember 10 to 15 goals like that have happened this year in similar circumstances. So here we are. Charlotte next. We'll see. Yeah.
I will finish with Jayden Nelson. From my point of view, I'm excited because I think he's going to be a better player for this experience. Whether he ends up being this true, he basically has become Jonathan Osorio over the last 3 weeks, right? Oso was a winger, a 1v1 guy, a goal scorer, and then MLS Cup happens, and all of a sudden he's a high-level possession, true 8 who can sort of flex in as a wing and a 10. Nelson's become that player. I don't think he's going to have to be that guy for his whole career, because I do think he is an elite 1v1 and attacking presence. But to add this to his toolbox is going to be massive for the future of his career.
I liken him to Latif Blessing, actually, is sort of the guy that's that Bob sort of turned into a creator in the midfield, in the center, as opposed to being an out-and-out winger. But I don't know if you guys see that as well.
That's been the connection that everyone's made, but I just think he's already cleaner on the ball and more goal dangerous, or more final third dangerous than Latif is.
That's a great thing.
We were looking for positives to come out of this terrible week, and there's one. Thank you, David. Thank you. We're going to talk about the Whitecaps after the break with Alex, so we'll go in depth there. Deciding to divert our attention to a massive Western Conference game between Seattle and LA, a super entertaining one as well, 3-3. Both teams remaining in the hunt for this playoff berth. I just want to confirm that was clearly a cross from Victor Vasquez. I love him dearly. I will always love him, but that was obviously a cross. If you guys disagree, I'll be shocked.
I probably have been blinded enough by the cult of Victor that he could convince me if he told me to.
Wow, it's true.
If he came up to me and said it was a shot, I would have done it. Yeah.
The celebration with his kid as well. Love the shout out to Lionel Messi. Couple things from this. I feel like these teams, it's better if they're involved in this chase. And it kind of goes into my Major League Baseball belief that it's better when the Yankees are good. I know it's controversial, but I like it when
Let's go Mets.
the Yankees are involved. I know, and it's shocking to say. But I feel the same about Seattle and LA, where I like how they're involved for this chase. I will give you credit, David, for staying on the Seattle train. But I thought before the penalty and before the equalizer, it was such a quintessential Seattle midseason game where they found a way somehow to grind out. And it's a testament to Schmetzer and crew, but it just felt like a classic Sounders game until that penalty.
Yeah, I would agree with you. There was definitely a wow, how could this be happening moment? But it does happen to Seattle. I mean, they just lost to RSL at home in a game they dominated. And then I think what I walk away from is the overwhelming talent on the team and experience. And as you said, I've sort of stuck with it. They're going to make the playoffs. There's too much happening with too many teams that need things to go right for them to not make the playoffs. Like over this stretch run, is there anyone you're going to trust more in big games than the Sounders players? Right? And especially then when you look at the players or the teams around them who have no experience in moments like this and stuff like that. It just, again, as you said, it just feels like there's too much there. And this was proof of it once again.
Quickly, do you think they both get in? Do you think the Galaxy get in too?
I don't know, guys. I'm definitely a Ricky Pooch, man. I'm Pooch City now. I don't know what term we're going to go with. I'm on the Pooch Tapas train, whatever it is. I love high possession players. I love clean feet. I don't think he's going to be a pure chance creator, but I watched this game and there was moments where he's sitting on the shoulder of a defender and he wants the ball and they didn't give it to him because they don't know him yet. But once you do, you start playing in and out of teams. You start moving teams, even if it's that half step around. And you think of then Raheem Edwards having space to run into, right? Or a cleaner angle to play that ball into. Julian Araujo as well. I think there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of him being on this team. Whether it's enough, I'm not sure. I go back to last year, and I talked to Sasha Kleshin, I think it was last week, or Greg Fanny may have said it, but like they really only thought they needed a tie at Minnesota, and they're just so bad defensively that they can't play games like that. And so it's worrying for them to be able to get enough results.
Classic. I got a good feeling about the Galaxy. Here's another bold claim I'm going to throw out there, but they're going to make a run. And they're going to make a run deep in the playoffs. You heard it here first. I'm confident, Sean. Let's go to the heat check.
Let's do this quick heat check. David, you got Toronto FC this week. 8 wins, 13 losses, 6 draws, 30 points, 11th in the East, 5 points back now, 7 games remaining. How are we feeling on the heat with Toronto FC, David?
Mint chocolate chip ice cream. Not only is the ice cream cold, the
Good
flavor is mint, which is cooling. And then you add in bits of chocolate, which coat your tongue and make things even cooler to any sort of spice. This is a dead in the water one. They're fun to watch. They're more entertaining now, and I think they'll be relevant towards the end, but there's no chance this team makes the playoffs.
I'm glad this is not a video podcast because you can't see the tears streaming down my face right now.
But how good is mint chocolate chip, right? Top flavor.
It's true. He's got a point. Devang, we're going to chat about Vancouver a little bit later, but let's get your heat check right now. 9 wins, 11 losses, 7 draws, 34 points, 8 in the West, tied for that final spot, but down on goal differential. 7 games remain. How we feeling?
Smoldering. The heat is percolating. I'm a bit concerned about those 2 teams we just mentioned, Seattle and LA, causing some problems for Vancouver, and they've played a couple extra games. But as we talked with Alex, I feel like the vibes are emanating in a positive way, and I think the Vancouver Whitecaps have a real shot at this.
David, last up, Montreal, 14 wins, 8 losses, 4 draws, 43 points, second in the East, 12 points up, 5 back of first place, 8 games remaining. What's their heat?
If I had to pick an ice cream flavor, it'd be Penang curry ice cream flavor, a spicy one, a lot of spice in that. Yeah. Doesn't that sound appealing though, right? Think about it for a second. This team's awesome. We said it. They might be on the verge of their biggest ever transfer overseas while still setting themselves up to compete for MLS Cup and having a pipeline ready for the next piece to come through. So on the field, in the front office, for the soccer side, everything is right. It is borderline a miracle what can grow out of, I was going to say a bad word, but I don't know what we like to do on this one. But, mushrooms and flowers can grow out of everything. And that's what's happened with this Montreal side.
Let's move on to MLS headlines quickly before we move on. David, Nashville laid the hammer down on FC Dallas 4-0 this past weekend, with the Maritime Messi scoring his first for his new club. What do we expect from Jacob Schaffelberg at Nashville? Is he going to thrive at his new club?
He has already outperformed my wildest expectations in 45 minutes. So I don't know how he could live up to what happened. Also, Mark Follow, one of the best in MLS. He's the Dallas Mavericks announcer as well as doing national TV. But for some reason, he became Jakob Schaffelberg in this game. Like he wasn't from where he was from. And that was really funny to me. But this is more than I ever expected for him. So I guess he will thrive.
New Dan Levitz, guys. He's following the Daniel Levitz blueprint.
Devang, it was announced that Pato will be out for the foreseeable future to undergo knee surgery. How much do you think this is going to hurt Orlando's playoff chances?
It's sad news. Someone who's obviously dealt with a ton of these type of injuries. I don't know if this is the death knell for Orlando. I've been kind of down on them in general, though. And I do feel like their placement in the playoffs to me is precarious. And I feel like there are some teams in the chase pack that I might rate a bit higher. That being said, I'm not really that confident in the Revs or Cincinnati or Charlotte either, right? So I feel like they'll be okay to get in, but it's been a weird season in Orlando.
I agree with you, Devang. I actually think Pato's been almost a bad crutch for Oscar Pareja. He's played him as a 10. He's played him on the wing. It's almost like when other things haven't worked perfectly, he just throws Pato out there, where the ceiling for this team is having Erkan Kara and Facundo Torres and maybe now Joe Aquini and guys like that peaking. And so this sort of forces him to give those players an opportunity. Benji Michel in that conversation as well. And I still think that that's the ceiling for this squad.
David, moving on. Brendan Vasquez looks to have signed a contract extension to 2025. The 23-year-old has filled the net this season, but we've heard rumors of Chivas, Leeds sniffing around. Do you think this is Cincinnati protecting themselves from a future transfer, or do you expect Vasquez to see the end of this contract?
I think the way it works now is that for both parties, the ideal scenario is to negotiate from a point of strength with other clubs. I don't think FC Cincinnati wants him to see the end of this contract, and I don't think he wants to see the end of this contract, and I think they're together on that. So my expectation would be that he'll play one more year with FC Cincinnati and then be sold overseas.
Last but not least, Devang, Wayne Rooney's DC United to continue to struggle as Philadelphia put 6 up on them this weekend.
You guys, they lost 7 last time. He has improved.
Progress. Rooney says this team will continue to change, but with Taxi, Fuentes, Benteke, Paulson as their designated player spots for the foreseeable future. How much can this club change quickly?
I'm sorry, Victor Paulson's a DP?
That's what it had. I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm looking. You guys can start talking.
Hold on. No, let's correct ourselves here. I'm pretty sure he's a designated player.
No, you're probably right, which is bad on its own right. Yeah, DP midfielder, Victor Paulson. That feels like a low-end DP that you can flex out of because that's brutal.
And I like Taxi a lot. But the Benteke move to me, I wasn't quite sure about, and I know it's early days yet. Another thing, I didn't realize how much Philadelphia owns DC United, like absolutely owns them for quite a long time now. So maybe the scoreline isn't that surprising. That being said, another one of those games where the first 20 or so minutes, I felt they could have gone the other way. I felt Ravel Morrison had some chances to maybe open up things and create some room to navigate the pressure for DC United. Obviously, that didn't happen. I don't think things will change for them much by the end of this season. I think this is about next year as well. But it's an interesting roster construction. It's a bit confounding. I don't totally get it, but this is Wayne Rooney's baby now, so we'll see.
Yeah, they hit the post in this game. So you're right.
I think
it could have been much different. Taxi had 2 or 3 chances, but I think teams that lay down and lose by touchdowns multiple times.
Not great.
Maybe there's something wrong internally.
I also, in that same kind of Yankees vein, it would be nice if DC United wasn't perpetually terrible, but we'll see if that changes soon. All right. When we come back after the break, we dive into the Vancouver Whitecaps and the CPL with One Soccer's Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic. Plenty of Canadian national team talk as well. Hope you enjoy it. Coming up next. Welcome back to AFP. David and I are lucky to be joined today by One Soccer's Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic to discuss the week that was in CPL land, plus the Vancouver Whitecaps. Alex, I've been not down on the Western Conference generally, but I've had some harsh words for the teams that ply their trade there. But the Vancouver Whitecaps are maintaining their chase for a playoff berth. What is the vibe emanating outside of the club right now, considering the week they just had?
I mean, it's a positive one. I think that was a good week for the Vancouver Whitecaps. First, get the result at home. 3 points. Not only that, but it was finally a positive first half performance at home, which has been months since they've had one of those. And they saw the job over the line, then headed to RSL. That one was unlucky, really, just the way they played. Actually, another good road performance, especially after that LA Galaxy loss, which was quite the surprise given how good their road form was. They kind of reverted to what we've seen from them on the road, but they just couldn't execute. RSL went up, but as has been the case for all the season, they came back late and snatched a point. So, I mean, overall, things are in a good enough spot. There is this feeling that the Whitecaps maybe could find another level just because they're always having to come back late in games. They've been giving up cheap goals, but hey, they've put themselves in the race with a couple games to go, and they keep finding a way. So, as frustrating as it is seeing what they could be doing, they're certainly in a decent enough position relative to all the injuries and everything they've faced so far this season.
Last year was such a high. The run into the playoffs, the Vanni Sartini experience, all of it. You talked about the up and down nature this year. Sort of what needs to happen over the next few weeks? Do they need to make the playoffs to make this year worthwhile? Is being in the race enough? Is staying in the race enough? Sort of what's the expectation and what's the read on the way the fan base and the city at large is sort of reacting to this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Canadian Championship win bought them some leeway because, next year they get that Champions League berth that they've long hunted for. They've been building a lot of depth, a lot of, making a lot of moves kind of with an eye of being a team that competes in multiple competitions. But I think if they want to fully progress off of last year, playoffs is a must because, heading into this year, that was kind of the goal. You make the playoffs last year. They were saying, okay, this year, bare minimum, you want to make it again. You want to make the final of the Canadian Championship. Well, they succeeded their expectations in the Canadian Championship. That still doesn't mean you want to fall short in playoff contention, especially just, I think, because the fan base needs momentum. It's been really... ever since the Whitecaps have returned from that sort of U.S. odyssey they were on for 2 years, it's been really up and down in terms of the support. I mean, we've had highs at BC Place, such as Seattle last year to make the playoffs at home, or the return in that first game back, or this year the Canadian Championship final was super loud. But then in between, there's just been games where there's no one there, the energy isn't there. And it's, frustrating almost because you see the potential of a game like the Canadian Championship final where it was 24,000. It was loud, it made a difference for them. So I think if they want to keep up that momentum, having a playoff push once again would be key as they head into next year for people to realize like, okay, this is a team that's legit. They're in the playoffs. They've won a trophy. They're in the Champions League next year. Maybe they're worth watching and worth giving those sorts of crowds on the regular. So I think because of that, the playoffs would be key, just if they're going to want to push and continue that momentum year over year and keep on that trajectory they've set out for them as a goal.
I was desperately hoping that Cavallini to Gressel combination did result in a goal because that chip was beautiful and the volley was ridiculous. But I agree on the unlucky side, Alex. I want to talk about Vanni Sartini because I think he's become the face of this club in a positive way. And I think just generally he carries himself in a way that is someone you want to follow and someone you want to see what they can do going forward. But I believe he has a contract until 2023. Maybe the future is a bit uncertain, but does he need to make the playoffs to secure his job? I feel like that win against the FC did buy him time, like you said, but it feels like he's fully entrenched as the leader of this club.
Yeah, no, I think he's good as long as nothing disastrous happens down the stretch. Of course, you can never say never, but I think for now, I think he's secure until next year. They give him a chance with the Champions League. I do think as well it would, just based on how this year's gone in terms of health, personnel, etc., giving him a full run with a full roster will be key. I think one thing that the Whitecaps have learned from this season is, they've made a lot of good additions to their squad. They're becoming a deep team. There is still some players to maybe clear a bit of room, still some positions to add. And I think once you give Vanni Sartini his full team, it'll be interesting to see where he takes it. 'Cause I mean, you look at the center back situation, for example, they're just crying out for 2-3 center backs this offseason. Maybe that's what they're missing right now in terms of stability at the back. So I think he gets, of course, at least one more year. And I think that the thing is with Vanni Sartini is in such an interesting position because I think long term they're going to want to go for maybe a younger face. You look at some of the guys they have in the club, like a Ricardo Clark as an assistant. It feels almost, maybe that's someone within the next 2 to 3 years is they're working towards having him be the head coach and have Vanni Sartini return to more the academy methodology side he was on before. But until then, as long as the results are there, the way Sartini's brought energy to this club, his job's very safe.
I forget that Sartini's background was in that coaching education. And it's funny because every game, he's always hugging all these people on other clubs. And I forgot how many people have actually worked under him. GMs, executives, all of that have taken courses under him across MLS. We've talked on the field. I wanted to ask you before we finish with Vancouver. Obviously, a lot of what's happened off the field in the past, but with all the investigations and with all the statements over the last few months, what's the perception of the club right now off the field as an entity, and sort of what's the fan base and city's perception of how they've handled this with this new regime?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit mixed in the sense that, of course, the investigation turned off a lot of people, and rightfully so. I mean, the state of the club in 2019 and 2020 in particular was, in a bad spot. I think a lot of people have responded very nicely to a lot of the moves that have been done, specifically in the recruitment. I mean, it's no coincidence that ever since Axel Schuster took over, a lot of the signings have been hits, and then even more hits since Nikos Overhool has come in. Fans love those moves. They feel the club is in a good direction. I think the one thing with the investigation is where things are going to be critical is what ends up happening with some of the executives that were placed on leave, because at the end, I think the final result of the investigation was that the Whitecaps were cleared of wrongdoing. Of course, a couple of them left already during the investigation. Just, already there's still a few where their futures are uncertain. So I think because of that, there's a bit of a gray zone, whereas fans are really happy with what the new, regime in terms of player recruitment, in terms of engagement, et cetera, where it's going. But also they're a bit worried if those 2 or 3 that are still around hang around. So I think for the Whitecaps, if they want to keep this positive momentum, figuring that out will be a must, because the fans are cautiously optimistic. But of course, it's a really fine line right now. And that's kind of the vibe I get from reading social media and seeing those that I know that are, supporting the club, etc.
Only a few games left. Nashville, San Jose, Colorado, Galaxy, Seattle, Austin, Minnesota. They're currently tied with the Galaxy for that last playoff spot, but they played a few more games. Alex, what do you think? Are they going to make it if you had to make the call today in the end of August?
I think for now I make the call just because they've shown that, they love this sort of pressure. They love the pressure looking at the schedule and seeing all these 6-point games, especially some of them at home. We've seen how they've seemed to respond in these big games. They almost hate the ones in the midseason. That's partially why they hit that slump. They need that pressure, that shot in the arm. And just based on how things are falling for them, I mean, for whatever reason, the last few weeks, the Whitecaps have just been getting blessed with the out-of-town scoreboard. So I think because of that, they just squeeze in. I think no chance they get any higher than 4th or 5th. But based on what they've shown, I would not be surprised if they get 7th or 6th and get a matchup with one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the West. Before
we finish on the Whitecaps, we have to nerd out, obviously, about Lowell Wright. You chatted with him a bit. I believe our understanding is he's been signed to the Whitecaps too, with an idea that he will then move into MLS. What do you make of the way this move's come about and sort of what his future looks like?
I think it's a very smart move. I mean, the one thing that was just still always blows my mind, especially when I was just doing the research for the article I wrote, he's 18 years old. It feels like he's been playing professionally for 3 years, which is like, you think, oh, okay, he's 22, he's 23. No, he's 18 years old. He's so young. He's already just entering, and he's one of the youngest kids on the Caps 2 team already, if not the youngest, because it's been mostly a team built of 20, 21, 22-year-olds. This is a move 100% with the future on the line. And I think that's good because, worst case scenario, you get 2 or 3 years of him really plying his trade in MLS Next Pro, getting first team call-ups with an eye on him, maybe because he's signed with the second team through 2024. Maybe he's the Whitecaps guy at 21 years old in 2024, 2025. But the nice thing is about him playing at that level and being on the cusp of the first team environment, if he progresses faster than he expected, as we've seen with Vanni Sartini this year, he will get call-ups. So with Lowell Wright, the nice thing is it's such a low ceiling in the sense that with what we've seen from Lowell Wright, a kid that's shown great physical attributes. He's showing a great understanding for the number 9 position every time he goes out there. He's dynamic. He can, score from outside the box. He can score inside the box. He has a lot of those tools. Well, now he just gets this, runway where he gets to go to the Caps second team and play. And, if his timeline could be as soon as next year, his timeline could be 3 to 4 years. And I think because of that, it's such a smart bet by the Whitecaps that they've invested in him long term. And that's why, with incentives, his contract or his signing, I think could be up to the highest fee in CPL history. And it shows that they went with him like, hey, if you can take this opportunity, we will invest in you. We will invest and give money to York. But if not, here's your chance. And I think that's a kind of cool signing that they need to make more of and take advantage of with the second team and in the first team as well.
It's through adverse circumstances, but Easton Ungaro also getting a shot with the big club, following that same pathway. Interesting path for him to get here, Alex. I wonder, what's his outlook at this moment? Is it more seasoning required at MLS Next Pro level, or is he ready to make this jump?
I think it's kind of, in between. I mean, as we've seen from the MLS Next Pro level, he's already done quite well. He scored 3 goals in his first 3 games. He's certainly looked up for the level there. I mean, it's tough to see much from that audition against the Galaxy just because the Whitecaps seemed out of sync with him. I don't know if that was him just being nervous, if that was the Whitecaps not used to having a striker in his mold, but he's certainly on the cusp, and I think it'll be interesting to see. I think maybe you just give him the run out for the rest of this season with MLS Next Pro, help them push for the playoffs, and then for the rest of the season, let him train with the first team and then see where he's at in preseason. But I'd say he's certainly on the cusp of the first team. And the one thing is, the first team could use striker depth. I mean, we've seen how fragile things are. Lucas Cavallini and Brian White, fantastic when healthy, when they're banging in goals. Cavallini's always been a suspension risk, and he's had a few knocks this year. Brian White as well has had a lot of knocks this year, which has been unusual. The striker position could use some depth, and looking, it would make sense if he keeps this up, finishes strong, pushes in preseason. He could be a depth option for the Whitecaps to consider in 2023.
I know you obviously cover the Whitecaps too fairly heavily, as well as all the other ranks of CPL and League One and all those things. What do you make of sort of where the academy stands? Because it's, I think, been one of the letdowns. And when you look at a Sam Adekube's success and all these players outside of the Vancouver area playing well, but Whitecaps too have been one of the better MLS Next Pro sides. What do you make of sort of the way the academy is set up right now and its ability to affect the MLS team down the road?
I mean, I think it's in a good spot. It's no surprise that as well as they've done in MLS Next Pro. I mean, they've been one of the top 5 teams all season. The only reason they might miss out on the playoffs is just due to the fact that the format is so weird, and then they're in the way stronger Western Conference. But I think this is no coincidence they've done as well as they have in the USL days when they had a second team. They're always pushing in the playoffs and among the better youth teams in that circuit as well. So I think the problem was always the transition from second team to first team. Because I think if you go back in the days, everyone always was banging on the Marco Carducci should go to the Whitecaps, Caden Chong, all these guys that were playing in the second team. That drum was always being banged, but we never saw them get the opportunity. So I think now, though, with a coach like Vanni Sartini, who knows the importance of the second team, I mean, since 2-3 years of interviews with him, he's always been banging on that drum. He's been consistent saying, we need a second team. We need a second team. I think if they can keep this up and just continue to let these players grow, there's 100% going to be opportunities for them in the future. And I think because of that, it's in a lot, brighter space than it was 3-4 years ago, where the talent was there, but there wasn't that transition phase between the 2 leagues. So you'd see them make the jump from U19 to MLS, and it would be evident. It's a tough jump to make. There's only 2-3 players around the North America each year who can even make that jump. So having the second team is massive, and I think it'll pay off long term.
Alex, you also chatted with Raheem Edwards recently. I know there was a lot of talk that he could potentially be coming back to Toronto, and he thought that as well, based on your conversation with him, with Bob Bradley at the helm here. But ultimately, he decided to link back up with Greg Vanney and go to LA with the Galaxy. Why do you think he made that choice?
Yeah, I mean, it was a multifaceted choice. Because I mean, obviously the lure of home was nice. This is pre-Domenico Crescito as well. It must be right, noted. So right. Maybe there would have been a path for him at left back. But the thing is, when Greg Vanney comes calling, seeing what he's done in MLS over his stint with Toronto, his stint with LA, you listen, and obviously Raheem Edwards hears him out. It's his first coach with TFC. Also, his assistant, I think Jason Bented was also Raheem Edwards' first coach with the second team. So he's like, okay, I'll hear it out. And Greg Vanney was clear, was concise, and laid things out. Said, hey, we want you as a left back. You saw what we did with Richie Larea. We think you have similar potential. Just maybe that hasn't been tapped into just based on how he's been playing every position in the world the last few years, especially with LAFC, where they used him as a whatever you want to call it, the Swiss Army knife, where he was just everywhere on the pitch. So from there, it just made sense. And they had a clear path for him in the lineup. They proved it. He worked hard. He took that opportunity, and it all worked out. So I think at the end of the day, it was just the right team came calling. And from there, so far, he's made a very good bet on himself based on how things have grown for him in the last 6 to 8 months.
Is the need to play left back a stability in career, or was it him looking at the national team and thinking that was his best road forward? And do you think he has a chance to break in?
I think he does have a place to break in. I mean, left back is tough. You look at your first two options on the depth chart. It's Alphonso Davies, World 11 left back, and then right behind him you have Sam Adekugbe, who quietly was one of, if not the best left back in CONCACAF during the World Cup qualifiers. But I think beyond that, the depth is certainly thin-ish, and you look at some of the guys like Davies is going to play up the pitch, so you need a little depth there anyways. There is 100% a road for him to be in Qatar if things stand, and I think it was a good move just for his skill set. He kind of mentioned himself. I mean, he's a very good offensive player, but he's not necessarily a final third guy in the sense he's not going to go out there and score 5 to 10 goals. He's more of a creator. And you can, on the team like the Galaxy, where they have inverted wingers, that allows them that freedom to play forward and get crosses into the box and get assists that way. So I think it just made sense for the way he fit in the Galaxy system, his skills as a player. And I think it's no surprise we've seen him do as well as he is. I mean, I was looking through his stats. He's one of the best, defenders in the league in terms of pressuring and tackling from left back, but he's also an excellent chance creator. And I think those sorts of attributes really suit him in this left back role, where he doesn't have to be asked to go in the box and score goals and put up the sort of counting numbers that, not a lot of wingers can always do. So I think it's just kind of been right place, right time, and a good fit for his skill set.
Let's get to the CPL, an absolutely bonkers weekend. Atletico soundly beating Cavalry, York United beating Forge on the road, Halifax beating the defending champs. Is there one storyline that stood out to you from a pretty monumental slate of games?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a fun, run-in for CPL. And I think, honestly, the one thing I'd take away is that everything is so competitive this year. I mean, first few years it was kind of the Forge show. Cavalry as well were always dominant. Those two were the kind of the guys. They made the playoffs every year, and the rest was just kind of a whatever would go on. We saw Pacific last year being an outlier. This year it's so competitive between the top four and even the top five when Valor's been on their game. And it shows that in the day where you expect Cavalry, okay, they're going to beat Ottawa surely at home, right? Cavalry's the best team at home in the league. Well, Ottawa's the best team on the road in the league, and they get a 3-0 win against Calgary. And, Pacific, you're like, okay, can they get a win against the Wanderers? They lose, and all of a sudden the table has just remained so tight, just 4 points between first and fourth. And I think that's been the biggest takeaway, that everyone can beat everyone. The race for the playoffs is going to be very fun. And the way they've set up the format this year, first versus fourth, second versus third, 2 legs in the semifinal before a 1-legged final. I can't wait with how the top four is already shaped out. It's going to be an exciting finish and then an even better playoffs.
Devang's literally just manufactured this whole interview so he could bring up Atletico Ottawa, because that's all Devang wants to talk about.
The one prediction I ever got right in my life, and I'm going to stick by this and champion them forever. I was just in Ottawa. Fly the banner.
Did everyone thank you on the street as you walked through?
Literally, yeah. People were presenting their babies. They were like, "Thank you, sir." Yeah, it was huge.
Let's go to York then, Devang, the area that you hate and you never want to talk about. And let's talk D-Row. Obviously, 9 goals this season, but he, his brother, his dad, everyone with the name De Rosario, their careers have been somewhat transient, a lot of movement. Do you think that he stays in the CPL? Does he go back to Europe? Does he try his hand in MLS? What's your expectation of what his future looks like?
I think he gets another year with York. I think he's shown a lot of great things on a struggling team. I mean, he has 10 goals, I think it is, up to now in this year, because he scored again on the weekend. So he's been obviously in great form. And, he's scored a high percentage of York's goals, which is very impressive for a young player. He's just 21. I think it makes sense for him to settle, really allow the York project to settle in because they've had a lot of injuries, which has hurt them and their cohesion in the attack. Obviously, they'll probably need to make a few signings to shore things up. But it'd be nice to stay in the CPL. And hey, even if it's not with York, just throwing random things out there. Pacific needs a striker all of a sudden. Imagine what a Waves and intra-league move like that would make. They already have made an intra-league move with York this year. But either way, I think it'd be good for him to stay in the CPL. He's shown great skills as a number 9. He can poach. He's got a surprisingly good shot from distance on him. He has good instincts. If he can continue to develop those for 1 or 2 more years, with what we've seen from him, with his name, with everything about him, no doubt some team, in MLS would want to take a shot on him. So I think if he's smart, he gets 1 more year, proves that this year was no fluke. And then hopefully, he gets this sort of opportunity because, he's a very exciting number 9, pretty unique package in terms of what he brings. And it's been one of the bright spots to watch on York for a reason.
You mentioned Pacific, Alex, making some news off the pitch as well. Paul Byrne is the new managing director there. It seems like Pacific is building something bigger and laying the groundwork for these plans. The stadium's being expanded. I was wondering, as someone who's been around the club, what's the feeling there? I feel like this is obviously a positive step, but it feels like they're planning for something bigger.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting transition period. Obviously, they got the upcoming, Vancouver 2023 team on the other side of the strait, which is going to be something, obviously the same ownership, which is unique. But I think Paul Byrne is a very good hiring because there was a worry that internally the 6-5 ownership group was maybe going to focus a little more on Vancouver. It's a big project. It's really ambitious. They've been going all in on that. So I'm worried it was okay. They're going to focus all that and Pacific's just going to be a forgotten entity. But I think with hiring a guy like Paul Byrne, it's like, okay, they're putting it in safe hands. This is a guy who's helped build the CPL. He worked with TFC and did a lot of building there. Did a lot of building with Brighton. We see where they are now these days. This is a guy who knows how to build, and there's such a good project on the island. I think it's key that they maintain it because we've seen how the fans have embraced it. Just the stadium expansion, they're running CONCACAF, winning the title. There's a lot of good things there, and it would have been a real shame to see that let go and become more of a 2nd or 3rd tier team in the CPL. So I think with this move, it shows that, okay, this ownership group is still committed to having strong teams on both the island and on the lower mainland. And I think it'll be good because Pacific's already proven that, that the mandate they stuck with, playing their kids, sticking to a style, it really paid off for them. They won the title in year 3. They've already moved on coaches, players to the next level all over. So I think this is going to be good for them to keep that project going, keep building something.
Amazing. Somehow, if you're listening to the show and don't already follow Alex, get your head together. But in case they don't, where can they find your work, sir?
Yes. You can find me on Twitter at Alex Gangue-Ruzic. Most of my stuff is on onesoccer.ca or btsfancity.com. In the other instances, it's not on One Soccer. And I also do some work for campl.ca. So anything Canadian soccer, I do it. So always a pleasure to chat all things Canadian soccer with you guys. So it was an immense pleasure to join the show today.
Legend, please come back anytime. Thanks so much for joining us, Alex. When we come back to wrap up the show, Sean opens up the mailbag with Ask AFP.
And welcome back. It's now time for Ask AFP, where Devang and David will do their best to answer all your questions. Thanks again to everyone who sent in their questions via Patreon, as well as Twitter. We'll start quickly with Stephen H. Very bluntly, can you guys just talk about how good Leeds United is and their win over Chelsea this past weekend? Devang, you start first.
As a Chelsea hater, fantastic to see. I also like Edouard Mendy, but I felt like that mistake obviously was the sign that the floodgates would open and maybe Leeds were destined to win on this day. But I mentioned off the top, I like what Jesse Marsch is doing on the touch slide. I like how he's not pretending to be someone he's not, if that makes sense. And I think that's obviously being displayed in the teams, in the terms of the selection of his team and the players that he's brought in. It feels very unique to him. And I think that's a testament to what he's done so far. Under trying circumstances, replacing a legend like he did, I feel like it was just good to see because I unfair or not, the referendum on MLS usually happens in situations like this where you have a lot of former people involved in the league on one team. And to see them do well, it feels pretty good, to be honest.
I mean, it was a high for me. I can tell you that. And it was coming off the low of waking up on Sunday morning after a long Saturday night. So it gave me the shot of energy I needed to survive. And it was awesome. As you said, it's just cool to see a lot of these people that I've known for a while, personally and as a fan, be themselves and it work at the highest level and not have to play a character or pretend you're someone else. Tyler Adams has been cocky. Jesse Marsch has been the same as he was when you dealt with him at Red Bulls, and Brendan Aronson, Jack Harrison as well. So it's really cool to see that and sort of see it be rewarded, and it's going to open up doors for other people.
The audacity of the no look after he stole the ball from Mendy, from Aronson, just the no look pass into the net was just good. Just peak, just like shithousery, and I loved it. We have a follow-up here from S. McGinnis. If you guys could choose one more MLS player to join Major League Soccer, who would it be? David?
Can I say Tati, or does that not count? Because he's technically on loan.
You can. It's the coward's way out, but you can.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Well, that would have been my first one.
Don't worry.
Okay, here. Do you have one first that you want to shoot?
Well, I was going to take the bigger coward's way out, but I'll let you go first.
So I would say, the rumors are obviously Kai Wagner, but I would say at right back, I think Aaron Herrera, I've said this a million times, he could run for 4 days, physical, good skills, and Julian Gressel. I think both of them could fit into the high pressing, direct style that they play.
Much better answer than what I had, but I'd like to replace Dan James with Bernardeschi. That's my choice.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure they would too.
Yeah. That's the way I would go. I'm like, Insigne, Bernardeschi, one of those two would be fine. Gareth Bale. Moving forward, a really cheap one here from Can Sock Guy. Sell, bench, keep. Neymar, Messi, Mbappe. David, you go first.
I do all of them, or I just can say one.
You choose which player to sell, which player to keep, which player to bench. You are PSG.
Okay, I would probably. Oh, this is hard. I'd probably sell Neymar. I'd keep Mbappe and I'd bench Messi because I'd assume if I bench Neymar, it's going to be a train wreck. I don't know what the sell fee right now is for Messi. Like, I don't know what that number is. Mbappe would get you the most, but you have him for the longest. So Neymar's probably the good in between of big name, but has still some more time to play. So that's my 3.
Devang?
It's less exciting because I think I agree. But so Neymar and Mbappe have beef. That's the word on the street after that penalty thing, right? So I think
that's been the word on the street all year.
For a while, yeah. Also, the sinister Instagram likes or Twitter likes for when someone is hating on the other guy and you're liking that's got to be day one stuff. You just don't do this, guys. You keep your petty squabbles in-house. I don't like it, but I think I would sell Neymar to where? Good question. I have no idea, but I think Mbappe is the de facto prime minister of France as well. So I feel like you got to keep him. Messi, I wonder what he's thinking these days, to be honest.
Well, he was playing tag with Neymar, and they were a pretty good team, so maybe he will refuse to play if Neymar gets sold.
But he's watching Barcelona mortgage whatever future they had to sign all these players, and I wonder if he's like, could they have done this for me?
I don't know, man, because they shouldn't be doing it anyway. It is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen.
Moving on, question from myself. I put this in the Discord the other day, and I just want to know but nearly after 15, 20 podcasts this season, we've been talking about goalkeeper issues across Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. Can you guys rank the top 5 keepers playing in Canada right now? Devang, you start first.
I'm only half trolling when I say Greg Ranjit-Singh is number 1. Let him play. Play him for Toronto FC, folks. Play him. Louisville City legend. I want to see him play in games.
I'm only half trolling by saying this. Based on shutouts, The top 4 goalkeepers in the CPL right now are Tristan Henry, Nathan Ingham, Callie Irving, and Marco Sanchez.
Yes.
Honestly, are they behind any of the guys that start for the MLS teams?
Pantamis had a good weekend. I think James Pantamis had one of his better games, but yeah, I think this is fair.
And honestly, Cody Cropper might be better than everyone else.
It's bleak times.
It's a tough top 5. I don't know what the answer is.
But do you agree, Sean, that we need to see Greg Ranjitsingh play in a game before the season ends? Because I feel like we really do.
Why not?
Right?
Like, the season's already, like, in the balance. He's the one guy that hasn't gotten an opportunity. He's not like he's a 21-year-old. He's got professional experience. He's won things. Like, let him play a game. Are we crazy, David?
No, I've covered him. I've called USL games he's played in. I've called other games. I think I've called Trinidad and Tobago games he's played in. I think he's good enough to play. Now, I wouldn't go into a season hoping he'll be my starter. But yeah, I think it's reasonable to say that he could prove that he should be your backup next year.
Okay, moving forward. Whitecaps Robert asks, out of all the Canadian guys in MLS who haven't really gotten a sniff around the Canadian national team, who's the most worthy? David, I think I know your answer, but I'll let you start first.
It's tough because all of the guys are wingbacks and fullbacks, right? And there's just no space. Like, as well as Raposo's played, as much as I obviously have stated my love for Matthew Chenier, they're all behind Richie, who's probably behind Tejan, who's definitely behind Alphonso Davies and Sam Adekugbe and Alistair Johnston. It's the deepest position, so I guess I'd still lean Joel Waterman. He's a better player than Daniil Henry, right? And Daniil Henry's probably going to be in the rotation at the World Cup.
I think that's right. I mean, I'm looking at center back and midfield because there's, like David said, there's a bit of a log jam everywhere else. I would like to see Baldissimo get a shot as well to be part of that midfield crew. But probably the last position you want to not tweak, but mess with heading into a big tournament like the World Cup. I feel like maybe midfield and center back, there's a reason why we don't talk about many names emerging through, because stability is key. And also, I mean, there's just a dearth of options.
Fair enough. I think it's a bit early for this call as well, but watching this past week, I think our boy Ralph Priso might get a nod after. I'm not talking about Qatar. I'm talking about beyond.
David leading the Ralph Priso propaganda and now suddenly pulling back the reins and telling us to calm down. How dare you, sir?
I think as a supporter of a young player, you always have to bring logic and calm into any conversation. And for him to barely have earned a starting spot for the Colorado Rapids on their way out of the postseason race to then move into a national team spot seems a little bit rash.
I think we're talking about sniff, and I think we're talking about between World Cups. I think just getting an opportunity. Last but not least, we sort of talked about this last week, but this one's a bit more of a fun standpoint. After the Tuchel and Conte incident, who do you guys take for winning a Royal Rumble with the Premier League managers? Who do you pick in a fight? Travis asked this. Devang?
I don't know if you guys have watched All or Nothing, the new season yet, but I
have not.
I feel like Mikel Arteta would be able to get through some of the early phases with some of the quote unquote taller, bigger people. But I do feel like Klopp has to be the answer here, just based on size.
I wonder if Klopp's fake. Like, he's big talk,
big tough
he's
guy.
got the rock and roll energy.
I think Conte now is a fake tough guy now. Yeah. Like, I understand the aura, but like if Thomas Tuchel, if they actually fought each other, TT maybe? I don't know.
Patrick Vieira, guys.
Yeah, Vieira's an obvious one.
Whoops. Just
big on
answer.
Pure size. But can I just put a vote in for the old man strength of David Moyes? You just never know.
Wearing those shorts on the touchline.
Yeah. You just never know when it's like he grabs someone by the ear and just slams them into the ground, and he's like, "Respect your elders."
That's a great choice. I like Scott Parker as well. He played for Spurs, but he's a real tough guy. Small guy mentality, but I love it.
Has anyone ever first connected Scott Parker to Spurs?
Wow.
Just me.
Yeah, just you.
Scott Parker, aka the Holt Renfrew model. Sean, do you really think this pretty boy would get stuck in the mud in a Royal Rumble?
Scott Parker, 113 appearances for West Ham, 119 for Fulham, 18 for England, 50 for Tottenham. He almost played as many national team games, 128 for Charlton, by the way. He almost played as many national team games as Tottenham games. The only team he played for less was Chelsea. I've never heard someone say Scott Parker, former Tottenham player.
I got to give him a shout out, man. Got to give him a shout out. Those were his glory years.
Yeah, those were his glory years.
The brand remains strong. We'll end it there. Thanks, as always, for joining us. If you enjoyed this week's show, please give us a rating or a review of the podcast wherever you get this. That'd be great for us. Plus, hit us up on Twitter at A Football Pod. And a reminder, we are on patreon.com/A Football Podcast. Join us there. Get access to the Discord, get the show ad-free, plus get it early when we record on Tuesdays. For producer Greg on the ones and twos, and for David and Sean, thank you so much for listening to AFP. Also, a big shout out to Alex for joining us and talking everything Whitecaps and CPL. We'll talk to you next week.